It's Monday, March 10th, 2025, and I've got an update for you on our big storm system that's coming in that's likely going to be the biggest storm of March, at least so far. So let's dive right into it. Here we go. We're going to start off with the big stuff. We've got a huge slight risk of severe weather from about southern Wisconsin all the way down into eastern Texas for Friday, March 14th. And then right in the middle of that, we've got ourselves a rare day 5, 30% risk of severe weather for Memphis. This also includes Little Rock. Right now, we are talking about the potential for strong tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail. But of course, we don't know the fine details just yet. We just know that there is a strong signal for severe weather. And it's not just Friday. This also carries into Saturday, which the slight risk encompasses my neck of the woods over here in eastern Kentucky. That goes all the way back over to Louisville, down past Nashville, Knoxville, towards Birmingham, and then of course all the way down into Louisiana, which is a place that has experienced a lot of severe weather already this year. More is on the way on Saturday. And once again, a rare day 6, 30% risk area for severe weather right there between Jackson, Mississippi and Birmingham, Alabama. Now, what's responsible for this major severe weather outbreak? Well, it's going to be this huge trough that's going to come through between Thursday and Friday. It's got a negative tilt to it here. You see how the trough is oriented towards the south and east. We call that a negative tilt. And basically the reason that's important and the reason why that's going to be one of the things that we look at for this being a major storm system is that negative tilt allows for an efficient transport of warm, moist air from the south and cooler, drier air from the north to kind of turn over here and mix together and cause a big time storm system. And we've also got a really strong jet streak here that's likely going to enhance the wind shear as we've got very strong surface winds coming into the storm like this, meeting up with those mid to upper level winds that are going like this at over 100 miles per hour. And it's just going to lead to some really ripe conditions for tornadoes, especially in the south. We're talking about Arkansas, eastern Texas, northern portions of Louisiana, maybe over there towards Memphis as well. This is going to be a very strong storm system that is going to be capable of producing tornadoes. Now, that slight risk of severe weather goes all the way up into Wisconsin and Illinois on Friday, but we might have a little bit of a saving grace here as right now we're dealing with some severe thunderstorm warnings in Florida. We had a tornado warning earlier in Florida. I'm speaking of right now as when I'm filming this, and that's all because of this little system right here, which is actually sweeping the Gulf of Mexico and its moisture out to sea. So once that passes, the Gulf of Mexico is really going to be dry comparatively, and it's going to have to rebuild its instability and its warmth. And it starts to do that as we approach Wednesday into Thursday. But look, another little divot here comes through, lifts up some Gulf of Mexico moisture out in front of it and sweeps it away. So if it wasn't for those two systems and the Gulf was allowed to just churn up some really unstable and moist air, this would likely be a historic tornado outbreak of epic proportions. It would be a horrific event that likely took the lives of many people. And I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic. I'm not saying that to do anything other than prove a point of how strong the storm system is, and also hopefully provide some relief because, you know, anytime you see something like this on the models, especially when we're looking at the GFS ensembles, nothing good's going to come out of it. And like, even though we are going to have less moisture to work with here, there's still going to be tornadoes. It's still going to be a big event. But the fact that we had those two predecessor events coming through is really going to help us out, especially the farther north we go. Here's another look at the moisture profiles of the Gulf. Here's what it looked like late yesterday, right? We have all these very warm, very moist values down here in the Gulf. Watch what happens as I push this forward. Notice our system right now is once again sweeping it all away. And then we've got some relatively dry conditions over the Gulf. It starts to build back up, and then another little system comes through and pushes some moisture away. It's not quite as effective as the one that we're dealing with right now, but it does keep a lot of the moisture from making it very far north. And then our big system comes through and it still pulls a very impressive amount of moisture, especially into the deep south, and just enough for severe weather up here into Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin, but it will be way worse if it wasn't for those predecessor events. So we should be very thankful for that. But man, this is going to be a very powerful storm. It's going to be another storm that potentially hits the record books as far as the central area of low pressure goes. And anytime we get one of these major mid-latitude cyclones, it's going to cause some problems. And it's not just severe weather that we're worried about, it's also snow. That's right, this is all going to start off as a major storm for the West Coast, especially in the Cascades and the Sierras over here in California, Oregon, and Washington. Washington, we're going to expect feet of snow in some of the higher elevations. We're also going to see a decent amount of rain even in the valleys. This is going to cross over into the Rockies as we head into Friday. Some very heavy snow in Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado is going to be possible right as the trough pops over the leeward side of the mountains and we start to see a low pressure system develop over the western plains. The GFS ensemble still believes that this is going to be a 974 millibar low by the time we get to Friday around 8 p.m. and that's an average. There are some members that are suggesting that this might be a 968 millibar low pressure center, which would make it one of the strongest March low pressure centers we've ever had. And basically all of that swirling action is going to pull up some Gulf of Mexico moisture and it's going to provide a lot of forcing with very dry air behind it. And that's going to spark off severe weather in this entire corridor here. And then of course we're going to have blizzard conditions on the backside. Now it does look like because there's a lack of moisture in front of it, there's not going to be enough to turn over here to lead to a storm system that produces feet and feet of snow on the backside, but it's certainly going to be a strong storm system that produces a lot of snow in places like Colorado, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, and of course up into Alberta, Canada. This is going to be a pretty decent system as far as snow goes, but mostly in the form of wind-driven snow. It's going to be a blizzard. It's not going to be more than 6 inches for a lot of people, but it is going to be a very intense snowstorm while it's going on. And then another side of this storm that we've got to talk about is the rain. Okay, so as the storm continues to move off to the north, it's going to keep on pulling moisture out of the Gulf into the deep south. And then as we get all the way into Saturday, we're going to see a resurgence of moisture here, another round of severe weather in the deep south, and very heavy rain making it up into the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio River Valley, over towards the Appalachians, mid-Atlantic regions, and then eventually the East Coast. Now, this could bring about some severe weather along the coast, but it's mostly going to be very chilly and pretty heavy rain that we've got to be concerned about as we go into the early part of next week. So very dynamic storm system. It's going to start off as severe weather, then we're going to be focused on the snow for a little bit, and then we have a very real flooding threat that we have to look at over here in a place that really doesn't need the moisture. And we're about to dive much deeper into that, but first, let's talk about today's sponsor. Trade Coffee. Don't just need your coffee, love it. I know we've got a lot of coffee lovers out there, so it's time to talk about Trade Coffee. This is a coffee subscription that's a legit game changer if you're a big fan of coffee and always on the hunt for that perfect cup. They're number one in the US in the specialty coffee marketplace, bringing you the freshest coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. One of the coolest things about Trade Coffee is they offer you this awesome quiz that you can take in under a minute, and it's going to match you with a coffee roast that's literally perfect for you. The team here at the Weather House drinks a lot of coffee, and of course everybody wanted to take this quiz, and it recommended us this awesome bag right here from Perk Coffee. The bag by itself is cool enough, and the team here at the Weather House says that the coffee is even better. This one was roasted just a few days ago and sent straight to our doorstep. So right now, Trade is offering an exclusive offer for Ryan Hall Y'all watchers. If you click that link in the description, you're going to be able to get 40% off your first order. That's DrinkTrade, TRADE.com/y'all for 40% off your first order. Link in the top of the description, and huge shout out to Trade Coffee for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back into the forecast. As you can see, through Friday, March 21st, we expect to see most of our rainfall over here in Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama. Some of these places have received so much flooding recently, and it's just unfortunate that we might have to deal with that again. So if you live in a flood-prone area, make sure you are prepared for that. And then also, obviously, we have to look at the West Coast over here, where we obviously are going to experience a lot of rain as well. This is less anomalous, but it's still going to cause problems. We have to watch out for some debris flows. We have to watch out for rock slides, mudslides, and flash flooding, especially in Northern California, as there's going to be a couple places that end up with 8 to 9 inches of rain. Absolutely no rain whatsoever, though, over here in eastern New Mexico and the vast majority of Texas. And this is really unfortunate because one of the things that's going to happen with this major storm system is we're going to have a lot of wind. All right, starting today, we're going to have strong wind gusts up here in Montana and North Dakota. This is going to be 30 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts just racing down from the north. But notice what happens here as we go forward. As that low pressure center develops off the leeward side of the Rocky Mountains, we are going to see a massive expansion of winds from Canada all the way down to Mexico. On Friday at 2 a.m., we could be seeing anywhere from 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts all up and down the plains. And then back here in New Mexico and West Texas, there's going to be a couple places that could see 60 mile per hour wind gusts. How about hurricane force winds in New Mexico and Texas on Friday while we're dealing with severe weather farther east. All of that very cool, dry air coming around the backside here is going to race down the Rockies and cause a lot of very high sustained winds over here. And this is going to be even more intense than what caused the dust storms and the wildfires that we had just a week ago or so. And it's going to continue for quite some time, all the way into Saturday morning. We're going to continue to see very strong winds in the northern plains, even over into the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes regions, even without thunderstorms. It's just going to be gradient winds driven by the very deep low pressure center that's driving all of this. And of course, that leads us to a fire weather situation that we have to watch out for starting today. We've got a critical fire weather situation going on here in South Dakota and North Dakota, but it gets a lot worse as we go into Friday, as those cool, dry winds move in behind the storm system. This is going to lead to a widespread wildfire outbreak in Texas up into Oklahoma. So please make sure you are prepared for this. This is going to be worse than what we saw a week ago, and we had a lot of wildfires then. So make sure you're prepared for this, and it will likely continue into Saturday as well. So as you can tell, we are going to be busy here at the Weather House for the next week. We are going to have daily video updates for you, and it looks like we're going to be live for probably 24 hours over the course of Friday and Saturday. That's going to be broken up into 2 streams. We'll be covering the severe weather, obviously. We'll cover the wildfires and the snow and the flooding and everything in between. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss that. And of course, I just want to say a huge thank you to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video. It's very meaningful whenever we have a sponsor, and I'm so happy that you guys have been supporting the people that support us, because it helps us keep going and it helps us continue to do what we do best here without having to worry too much about running commercials and stuff like that. So thank you, Trade Coffee. And that's all the weather talk I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.